What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me, where today we're going to go ahead and create this owl design. As always, you'll need to check out the requirements down below for the canvas size, the palette, and any brushes that I've created for you. As always, if you can drop a like on the video, that would be amazing, and if you can hit the subscribe button, that'd be even better. So with all that said, let's get started. So once you've created your canvas, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is go up to our colours, and we'll take a look at the palette for today's design. Now the two blues here are going to act as our sort of background colours, so that's what we'll deal with first. We're going to grab the first colour in the palette, and let's just drag it onto the first empty layer, which will fill that in. Next, what we'll do is we'll go up to our layers. Let's create a new layer, and then we're going to change our colour. Let's just double tap in the top left hand corner to select white for a second, and then we're going to go to our brush library. Let's then scroll down until we get back to calligraphy, and we're going to use the Monoline Brush. So once you've got your Monoline Brush, doesn't matter necessarily what the size is, but your opacity needs to be 100%. We're just going to simply draw a circle in the middle of the screen, and if you hold your pen at the end, it will turn it into an ellipse. But if you pop your finger on the screen, you'll get a nice perfect circle. And we want to go for something quite small in terms of something roughly like that. And then we're going to drag our colour into the centre for a minute. Then what we're going to do is grab our cursor, and as always make sure snapping is turned on in the bottom left hand corner, and we're just going to drag that circle until we hit the two orange lines, which lets us know we're nice and central in the middle of our canvas. And then let's tap on our cursor when we're done. Now as I mentioned, that white is only temporary, so what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our colours. We're going to grab the second blue on our palette, so this one here, and drag that into the circle. What we're then going to do is just go to our colours. Let's then go to the first blue in the palette, so the first colour. Then go back to your layer, tap on the layer and alpha lock it. Then let's go to our selection tool. Let's then go to the rectangle option and make sure colour fill is turned off. And then you just want to go ahead and draw a box almost halfway down, so roughly something like this. Now you obviously see the top of the circle there disappear for a moment. But then tap on your selection tool when you're done. And then let's go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right. And then you'll get a beautiful little sort of transition there where the two colours are just going to blend into each other. And we want the top of the disc to pretty much be somewhat sort of blurred out and run into the background. So we can lower this down to something around about sort of 45%. So we've got the blue, it runs into the background blue and then literally into the background. And then let's tap on our cursor when we're done. The next step is to go to our layers and create a new layer. We then need to go up to our actions. Let's then go to canvas, and we're going to turn on the drawing guide. If we then edit that drawing guide, we can pick the option down here in the bottom right for symmetry. That will give us a line, as you can see, that runs straight down the middle of the canvas, and this will allow us to draw on one side and it reflect on the other. So once you're done with that, hit done, and you'll get that line running down the center. And then every layer that's in your layers that now has the word assisted underneath is using the drawing assist of the symmetry option on that particular layer. So you can turn it off per layer. What we're then going to do is go up to our colors, and let's double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black. We're then going to go to our brush library, and you're going to need to grab the script brush that I've called Owl Line Brush. I've made some adjustments to the script brush, but it's called Owl Line Brush. Now for you, because it's an individual brush, it falls into the imported section right at the bottom. So you just need to grab that Owl Line Brush. Now the brush size I've got for this is currently set to 14%. Now we're just going to start here nice and light as you run into the line, add some weight and just let that then run out. So you add a little bit of pressure on this inside there. Now just thicken out the line on that edge. What we then want to do is increase the size of that shape to create the outer part of the owl. So we're just going to come around here, come down here and just let that run until it gets to here. Now we need all of our lines to join, so we're going to go ahead and from this center line where we created the belly, we're going to go ahead and start to add in some feet. So we're going to start here, create a nice little curve and then another little curve, and that's your first claw. You can then go ahead and create a second one off of this point, and then a final third one that just runs all the way up to the outside edge there. If we then zoom out and we take a look towards the top area, we can then create the head. So we're going to create an arc that runs right around here and runs into this sideline that we created. So let's then start here let's just create a nice little curve and let that run out at the end. So let go with some nice flick of your wrist. Let's then create the ears. So we're going to come across the top edge and then round into the back of the head. And then finally we'll just join across the top of the head like so. Your lines will meet in the middle. What we then need to do is introduce the face. So we're going to start on that center line. We're going to create what looks like a heart shape with a rounded bottom towards it. So starting in the center, you just want to create a nice rounded shape like this and then go all the way around and link up in the middle. Now you may need to go ahead and just adjust your entry there as you both meet at the bottom. Then we can add a little V shape for the nose. So we're just going to start on the center line just here and just let that run out, and that is your V shape for the nose. And from there we can then introduce the eyes. So we're just going to create a nice little eye that has a nice little flick on the end and on the entry, and then rounded at the bottom as well. So then let's fill that in, and then you have your eyes. So you can then just tidy up your line work if required, like mine. I'm just going to go across this bottom edge, make sure that's nice and smooth, make sure we don't leave any bumps and lumps in the sides. And then zooming out, we've then got our outline work for our owl done, and now we can just simply add in all the extra colors. So we're now going to go up to our layers. Now at this stage we just need to go ahead and zoom in and just make sure all of our lines are touching that run around the outside edge. And I can see a little gap here, so this is something you want to be aware of, and just tidy that up by just drawing in a nice smooth line that just runs into the rest of your line work as well. So when you zoom out, you now have that all connecting, your feet are all connecting to then the belly, and then that should give you a nice perfect shape. So from there what we're going to do is go up to our layers, and we're going to go ahead and tap on our layer here for our line work, and we're going to use the reference tool. If we then go ahead and create a new layer and drag it underneath, every layer now in the document is now going to start to look at this as a reference, as a guide to what to do. So if we now go up to our colors, and we then go ahead and grab this color here, so second from right, and then drag that into the actual bird, it's now going to go ahead and fill in the whole of the owl with the brown, because again this empty layer is now using the one above as a guide. What we then want to go ahead and do is create another new layer, then go to your colors. We then want to go ahead and grab this color here, the fourth color on the top row. We want to drag that into the face. But what we then want to do is on the same layer, going back up to our layer and tapping on it and making sure it's drawing assisted, so it's also using the symmetry option. We want to fill in the belly. So we're going to go ahead and just simply draw in a line that's just within inside this line. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're on the inside it's all good, and you can meet at that point at the bottom. Then we're going to go ahead and zoom in, and we're just going to add in a feathered look that runs from edge to edge here. Now I'm going to make my brush size a bit bigger, and we're going to make it roughly around about sort of 35%. So I'm just going to start on the outside, create some nice little flicks that just run around like so, and then just continue to make my way in towards the center, trying to create a nice little rounded look, so when we meet in the middle we can then fill all this in using the brush, getting down into here, and then we've got our nice center of our owl nicely filled in. So now the next step is to start introducing the second tones, because in our palette we have two colors for each section. So this light section we were just working in has a slightly darker tone, and then the outside brown edge actually has a lighter tone. So we've got two tones to just add some extra color to each area. So while we're working on the lighter area, let's then grab this color here. So it's the third from right of our colors. We're then going to go to our brush library, and we're going to go to airbrushing, and we're going to use the soft brush. We're then going to go back to our layers, and we're going to go ahead and on this lighter area we're going to tap on it, and we're going to alpha lock it. That will prevent us from painting outside of the boundary of the actual shapes that we've created here, both the face and the belly. Then we're going to make sure our brush size is set to, let's go to about sort of 7%. If not smaller, we could go down to about 5. And then we're just going to follow this curve down and just introduce a darker tone. So we're going to start slightly outside the body, just swing that in towards the bottom, so that the underside is nicely added in with this darker tone there. So you've got this beautiful dark tone that runs all the way into this point at the bottom. Then we're going to go ahead and zoom in on the face. Now for a moment we're actually going to grab the selection tool, make sure color fill is turned off, and we're going to grab the freehand option, and we're just going to circle around the face and tap on the dot. That will prevent us from interfering with this section, so we're basically telling Procreate we only want to paint within here now as well. Then going to go to our brush, We're going to reduce the brush size down. We're going to get down to about 3% to start with. We're going to go around the side. Because we've got drawing assist on, it's going to colour in from both areas. So we're going to go around the side of the face. That's lovely, adding in that extra bit of colour. We're then going to reduce our brush size down to say about 2%. And we're just going to darken up the underside of the nose. Just adding in a little bit of colour under there. And then you guessed it, just underneath the eye, we're just going to darken that up as well. So just darker tone underneath there and let that run out to the side. And then making sure that the outside edge has got a really dark tone right on the edge. And then if we zoom out, we've got some beautiful bits of extra colour in here now. We can then tap on our selection tool when we're done. What we're then going to do is work on the outside area. So we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go down to the brown layer that we created and tap on it and alpha lock it. And then tap on the layer and also turn on the drawing assist. We're then going to go to our colours. We're going to grab this final colour on the top row, so the far right. And we're going to make our brush size about 4%. So we can now start on the inside edge here and just introduce this brighter tone like so, just around the belly, round onto the outside edge, very, very lightly, but more so brighter towards the center. If we then go ahead and zoom in on the head, we're going to reduce the brush size down to about 2%. And we're going to go around the left side, which will obviously do it on the other side as well, and then more so towards the top and meet in the middle. So you introduce this little bit of extra brighter tone on the inside there and meet towards that center point. And if anything, we could probably bring this round a little bit further and push it a little bit wider, both at the top and on the side there. And if you zoom out, that's all you need to do for that extra tone. The extra little steps that really take this to a really fun level is to add in some extra shadows and highlights. So we're going to go to our layers. We're going to go ahead and create a new layer that sits just underneath our line work and tap on that layer and drawing assist it. We're then going to go to our colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. We're then going to go to our brush library. We're going to go back down to the section that has your owl line brush in it. We're then going to go ahead and I'm going to make my brush size a bit smaller for a moment, just to 14% so I can be more accurate. And we're going to add in highlights that sit on the top edges to start with. So for this, if we zoom in, for example, on the ears, I'm going to go ahead and from the point down here, just draw in a line that runs across to the edge there. That's going to act as our highlight. I'm then going to go ahead and in here on the top of the head, because the light source is above, we can then just do exactly the same thing. So just go across, meet in the middle and come across and then fill in the gap on the left hand and right hand side till you end up with a highlight that looks like that. Now we do need to tap on the highlight and change its layer opacity by tapping on the N and lower the opacity down to 25%. Then when we take a look, that's what our highlights are going to end up like. We've got a couple more to add, mind you, but that's what the effect is going to give us. Just this nice solid highlight. Underneath the head here, we're going to do exactly the same thing. So we're going to push a highlight round towards that left side like that. We're then going to go ahead and introduce a highlight on the belly. Now we just want to start sort of at the peak here of this sort of flick that I created. And then starting there, we're just going to go ahead and just let that just run down into the line work on the side. And then fill in that gap on the right hand side here, like so. Now what you need to do here though, is we need it to match up to the actual sort of lighter area there. So we're just going to go to our eraser, tap on the eraser, make sure you've got something like the Monoline Brush and reduce that brush size right down and just in here, just tidy up any edges. So get rid of this little bit here and then maybe in here, just get rid of it into the center and then paint it back in. So just paint it a little bit closer to the line. So just a nice little addition in there and a nice little highlight that sits on the inside of the belly. And the final highlight is to add one on this outer edge. So again, using this line, we're just going to follow that round and let that run down into the outer edge and then just fill in the gap. And then when we zoom out, we've got a beautiful highlight then on the side as well. Now working with the same layer, we're also then going to introduce our shadows because they're also at 25%. So what we can do is we can actually change our color and change it to black by double tapping at the bottom of the disc to select black and then introduce our shadows. So they're on the opposite side of things. So for example, here where the highlight then runs out on the underside of the belly, we're just going to introduce a shadow that runs all the way down into here. So we're just going to introduce that and let that run all the way down to the bottom. We're then going to introduce a shadow here that goes underneath the wings and onto the feet. So we're just going to push that out like this. And then if you get any excess that runs outwards, just grab your eraser again and just make sure it stays within the boundary of the owl, like so. Then go back to your brush. We're then going to add in a shadow that sits on the underside of the face. So we're going to start roughly out here and just create a shadow that meets in the middle. And then again, just grab your eraser. If you need to, increase your size up and just tidy it if it runs into the face. We don't want that to run into there at all. And then grab your pen one more time and we're just going to grab a little shadow on the bottom edge here of the ear. So just a little flick at the bottom. We can then also maybe introduce a little shadow that sticks underneath the nose, just a tiny one like that. And then zooming out, we've got all of our shadow work and our highlight work. And there's one more layer to add in terms of the owl, and that's to go up to our layers and create a new layer. And we need to put that layer above our line work. We're then going to go to our colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. And then what we're going to do is just introduce some nice really bright tones. So we're going to just introduce like a little flick on the top of the ear here, a little flick on the top of the ear on the opposite side. In the eyes, we're just going to go ahead and just put a little dot on this side here on the right, and then another little dot just beside it. And then if you're happy with one side, just simply go to your selection tool, draw around it and tap on the dot, and then use the option here of copy paste. Copy paste, grab your cursor and just move that across onto the opposite side. That way now you've got exactly the same reflection as the right hand side. Then go to your layer and pinch the two together. So you've got now one layer with all your white little accents on. Zooming out, that's all we need to add for the owl, and the owl itself is now actually done. We can then work on a few little bits that sit in the background. Let's go to our layers. Let's go down just in front of the circle here and create a new layer, and tap on this layer and clip it to the circle. Then go to your brush library and you're going to want to use the Monoline Brush. We're then going to go to our colors and we're going to grab the third color here on the top row. We're then going to go ahead and make our brush size fairly large at 100%, and we're going to create a little branch. So this is just going to create like a little sort of sweeping S shape. So we're just going to run this across from one side like so, and if you're not happy with your positioning, grab your cursor, smooth that down until it pretty much just runs underneath the feet there. You can even move it so it sits a little closer like that, and then tap on your cursor when you're done. The next step is to then go to that layer and create another new one. Tap on this layer and clipping mask it. Then go to your colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. Using the monoline brush still, let's make it all the way down to 1% and just tap away, adding in some stars just towards this top section. So make sure to tap and not drag, because otherwise you would create like a little line rather than a nice little dot in the sky. So there's a couple of dots in here, adding in some nice patchy areas of star. You can put a couple quite close to each other if that helps, just to sort of break up the pattern a little bit. And then you just want to maybe increase your brush size up to say 2%, if not 3, and then just tap away. Let's go to 3. Let's make that a bit bigger, about 3%. Tapping away, and that should give you some slightly larger stars in here. And that's just going to act as our little backdrop here for our little owl. And then you can see I'm just placing a couple that are quite close together. That just, like I said, just adds more to that sort of night sky look when there's a few bunched together. Zooming out, there's a couple of other things we just need to add in just to add to this illustration style. Let's go to our layers. We're then going to go ahead and grab our brown layer, select that, swipe then on the one above, swiping it from left to right on the highlights and left to right on the line work. We're then going to go ahead and group that together, then collapse the group down, swipe the group to the left and duplicate it, and the bottom one out the two, tap on it again and use the option of flatten. It should be alpha locked, but if it's not, tap on it and make sure it is alpha locked. Then go to your colors, double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black. Then go to your layers, tap on the layer and fill it. And then tap on the layer and turn off the alpha lock. Then drag this layer down into the layer just above the circle. Then go ahead and grab your branch layer as well. Swipe that to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the two. Drag black into the branch area and you won't see any visual change. But if we then go to our layer, tap on the branch that you just created and go to the option of merge down. That will merge the branch onto the same layer as the black owl layer that we created. Let's then tap on the N and lower the opacity down of this layer to 25%. Grab your cursor and then just move this down to the bottom left hand side just a little bit, just creating a nice little shadow here. Just helps your owl sort of stand off from the background a little bit more. Then tap on your cursor when you're done. And then we can go ahead and let's just make sure that's nice and full for our canvas. We can then tap with 4 fingers and we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and as always be sure to drop a like down below, helps the channel out an awful lot. And if you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, so hit that subscribe button. As always, a massive shout out to all of my supporters over on Patreon. I'll throw their names up on the screen now. Patreon supporters get access to 3 exclusive tutorials every single month, as well as sneak peeks of upcoming designs, early access and much more. So hit the link in the description down below and come and show your support. And as always, if you're interested in any of the equipment I'm using, the Sketchboard Pro that you can actually use code JoelCreate to get yourself 10% off, or a Paperlike screen cover, or the pen tips grip and glove, there's links to all my equipment in the description. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.